point, so I know, especially now with digital marketing, like you said, there's like a science behind it, and a lot of it is data-driven and analytics-driven. So how important in your opinion, do you think data is nowadays to the success of an organization or a business?
Oh, it's intrinsic. If you don't know what your users are doing, you are flying blind, because your competitor is going to know. So it's, I would have said 10 years ago, you could do it without it because nobody had it. But now it's almost like the risk of disinformation. So you as a player, you need to be extremely sharp, because your competitor is just as sharp. So if you're not looking at what are my customers doing, why are they doing this, where are my risks, what days don't they buy, why don't they buy? If you don't have these answers at the tip of your tongue, your competitor is going to have them. And in an ecosystem, regardless of industry, we are entering a playing field where everyone is more informed. There are more brands, there are more consumers. So how do you stand out? And sometimes you need to also remember, in this world of digital, you are not competing with your competitor only. You are competing with every single brand who wants the attention of the customer. And so your competitor is not the person in your same industry. Yes, they're your direct competitor, but you're competing for that share of time. It's that time attention that is incredibly valuable. So yes, you need it. If you don't, you're behind.
I think you made a very good point, that especially now that everything's in the digital space, that to remember that, yes, you have competitors in the field, but you're not just competing for that. And the whole world right now, with how the more technology is advancing, the more addicted we're becoming to our phones and to all these kind of things. Attention is that resource that everyone's trying to grab. But whether you're in that space or not in that space, if I can grab your time, I can grab your attention, there's a chance potentially you can become a customer in the future, or an advocate for whatever I'm trying to do. And on the point about data, like you said, I think you're 100% right that it is intrinsic. You need it nowadays. But I also think that having it is one thing, like collecting it, which is great because you need it. But I think the key lies in how are you using it and how are you understanding it. So is it enough to just have the data, or does it need to be a process or a strategy behind it? Okay, how are we going to take this and apply it to like the business goals and KPIs and so on?
You're 100% on the money. You can have all the data in the world, but if you don't know what you do, you'll end up with analysis paralysis. And yeah, it's true. And I've seen it happen a lot. So my recommendation is, think, what is your most important number? What is the one thing you're trying to impact? Is it revenue? Is it volume of sales? Is it just time spent if you're a content producer? So my advice is, what is that one number that rules them all? And this is what we call your North Star metric. So you pick one number that is your most important number that you're going to focus on driving forward. And so, for example, for a company like Kareem in the early days, it would have been trips. How many trips are we doing? And everything was decomposed around trips. Of course, now the business is much more complex with the super app, which everyone's, of course, very familiar with. For us at Umore is how many, for our mental health platform, how many check-ins do we have? So how many times are users checking in? So you want to identify that one number that rules them all. And through that number, you reverse engineer the mathematics to get more of that number. So for example, for something like, so for your daily check-in, okay, great. They're not when they check in, why are they checking in? Why are they not checking in? Fantastic. How long are they staying? Did they do it after a push notification, or did they do it organically? And then you start figuring out what are the contributing factors to that one number, because that will tell you what you need to do to fix that number.
Yeah.
Or improve it, not fix it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's such a good point that I've never considered before, is because I would always assume that the most important number for any business, I think, is, you know, that the bottom line, that revenue, that cash in the pocket at the end of the day. But I think, like you said, I think that obviously is the end goal, but there's different North Stars you can have at different stages. So for example, with you guys, for example, have the check-ins. So that could be, so a North Star, for example, could be engagement, or maybe time spent on the app. How do we keep users on the app? So I think it's a very good point that can change over time. So when it comes to setting like that North Star, is it just going to be based, in your experience, on what does the business need right now, or is it more of a long-term play?
So I think North Stars should be, you should set them. It depends how quickly you're moving as a company. So how stable is your product? If your product is evolving constantly, your North Star is going to change with that product. So in the infancy of the company, yes, you're going to be looking for frequency numbers, engagement numbers. As you become more mature, eventually revenue will be a number. But I don't like looking at revenue in itself, or even, of course, you need profitability, but that is a number that doesn't tell you much about your business. So why are you increasing revenue? Can you find something that describes what drives your revenue? So for example, if you're selling toys, your revenue is driven by the number of toys you sell. So isn't that a better descriptor of how many toys am I selling, or am I just selling more expensive toys? Because if you're selling more expensive toys, your revenue will go up, but you're not necessarily selling more toys. So is your business better or worse? So I would challenge, find the thing that's at the right stage for you. It should be somewhat permanent, like I would say a year, maybe. It depends how mature your business is, or if you're in an evolving state. So for us at Umore, we're not revenue focused right now, not at all. We're completely growth focused. So that wouldn't be something we would be looking at right now.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, that it all depends on what stage you're at in the company, what are you trying, and I think you made a very good point about the revenue, because I think a lot of people would think, oh, my sales are increasing, we're generating more revenue, that's great. But without taking a look at why that's happening, you don't understand exactly what's going on, and how can we, push that further in the future. I wanted to come back onto,
because you could have just increased your prices.
There you go. Exactly. Nothing could have changed, but you might have increased the price. I wanted to come back to something you said earlier, which I thought was interesting, which is, with digital marketing and your experience with growth, how you create something, and then you use the data behind it to repackage it, to deliver it to your consumers in a much more effective way. I'm curious, I feel sometimes if you're too data driven, that can hinder potentially the creativity of the stuff you're trying to make. What would you say to that? Or do you think, is there a balance that you kind of need to find?
So this way we start really going into, is your brand functional or is your brand aspirational? So nowadays, when you look at Apple, they have a very aspirational brand. So Apple doesn't tell you, we build great computers with amazing processing power. You'll never hear them say that. They will tell you, we build computers that change the world. Because Apple is already at a stage in their brand ecosystem where they can have the luxury to be extremely aspirational, where their users follow the brand because of what the brand stands for, much more than what is the CPU or the camera pixel quality. It is because of how you identify with them. I would argue for earlier stage products, you don't know what your brand is. You don't know what you are yet. So you need to experiment. And so the challenge I have with creativity is essential for innovation, but you have to do it a lot of times. So constant, and this is where the data comes in. So you need to experiment a lot. You don't know what's going to work until you don't know what you don't know. So a creative opinion is very subjective, and it's a one-off. So you need to do 100 of those to find which one resonates. So yes, you do need creativity, but you need the data to figure out if that works. Of course, once you're an established brand with a base, and you know what your users want and why they follow you, you can have a very aspirational, high touch ecosystem. But at the beginning, you need to be, very, very focused, very functional, and because you still don't know that why, you still don't know that secret sauce that people love about you, and it's going to take time to figure that out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's such a good point, that the data kind of, it fuels the creativity in a way, because like you said, you need to keep trying things and experimenting, and you only know what's going to work when you take a look at the data. It's like, oh, are we going in the right direction? Okay, cool, we continue doing this. If not, we're going to have to change some things up. So it's, now I understand how the two kind of play together. They don't hinder each other, they kind of complement each other, if anything.